Video on the Daisy Model 96 and the mystery of the correct shot tube. As you can see, the Daisy Model 6 is a wide body Daisy. It's a little bit different from the Red Riders we normally mess with, and what we're focusing on today is the correct shot tube for the Daisy Model 96 and what makes this tube the correct shot tube. Well, the big clue on this is this shot tube came out of the gun and it works, so we know this is the right shot tube. But on the Daisy Model 96 and the Model 95, instead of loading your BBs through a lightning loader at the front, what you have is a BB trap located on top of the barrel shroud. Now you'll also notice that the 96 that we have on the bench here today has got the classic Daisy 96 messed up front sight. It's a tribute to the technical inefficiencies of Daisy and plastics. When the sight went on the gun, it was a black plastic, and over time, 30, 40 years, it's changed color and it's lost its structural integrity. It started to crack. Eventually, as time moves forward, that front sight won't be there at all. Instead, you'll have a small square hole here and a small square hole there, and a mystery as to what the hell went in there and why did they do that way. Now, on the Daisy Model 96, since the BBs load from the top, you have to have what is called a BB trap. And that's how, when it's installed, this gun looks. This little bead, little bucket comes up and covers the hole. Because a Daisy Model 96 is a gravity feed gun. You feed the BBs in here, you invert the muzzle to cock the weapon, level the gun to fire it. So the BBs themselves just kind of rattle around in the tube. Classic rattle trap Daisy. And if this tap wasn't in the right spot, then the BBs might fall out when you're in the load, reload, shoot cycle. And that's something you really don't want. Now, when people ask about 95s and 96s, the two models of wide-body Daisies that are out there, a lot of questions revolve around, will my shot tube fit this, or they don't have a shot tube when they get the gun. And then, if you read the forums, there's a lot of people who say that a Daisy Model 6 air tube, or shot tube, is going to be longer than a regular one. That's not necessarily true. We have here on the bottom a Red Rider air tube, shot tube. Then we have two Daisy Model 96 shot tubes, and as you can see, they are essentially the same length. They have the same kind of threads here on the base. They utilize the same spring retainer system to hold the BB in position for firing. The main difference is down this way, and that is the position of the BB trap. Now on the 95-96 tubes, you'll see the BB traps are offset about 4 inches from the end of the muzzle. That's so that it can make contact with the hole at the top of the receiver. On a Red Rider, down here, you'll notice that the trap is much closer to the muzzle, and that's because this is set up for the lightning loader system. And once again, when you're loading your Daisy BB gun, you don't want your BBs rolling out the front of the gun while you're trying to get a reload cycle done. So let's go ahead and stick this rascal back in its intended home. Just load it in, get it locked, start threading her down, and you'll notice that that BB trap, after a couple of rotations, centers up, and there we are. So now the gun could be loaded, could be fired, and you wouldn't lose any BBs. Other than that, the lever action system is the same, metal trigger, has the same basic plunger assembly as all the Red Riders and all the other small frame Daisies, and this one is still equipped with a spring stock, or a spring block, the stock solution. The Model 95s and 96s being wide bodies, which means they are wider frames on the receiver than a Red Rider or a 111 or any of the small frame Daisies, had thicker stocks. Typically we're a little bit beefier. These were more like guns for older shooters, not so much for little small tykes. So that's the video for today, the location of the BB trap on the Daisy Model 95 Model 6s that had the peculiar plastic front sight, and what is an appropriate shot tube for these guns. Now, one other thing I want to point out is you'll notice the Red Rider shot tube has a tab, and that actually covers the lightning loader port. You can use one of these on a Model 95, Model 96, but it's going to be sticking out. And no matter how you position this, it won't cover the BB tap. Now, one last item on this style of shot tube, if you look down here very closely, you'll see that the BB tap has a small detent. That locks into a hole that's in the shot tube itself so that it won't shift up and down or rotate left or right. You'll notice that the same sort of little divot is present on the Model 95 shot tube. Once again, that's there to locate the BB tap so that it won't shift on its own. Nothing more irritating than twisting your muzzle to get your BB tap closed, only to discover that it refuses to comply with your wishes. So some folks will say that you can slide these up and down or spin them around. I recommend you don't do that, because as soon as you get that out of that little hole that it's punched into, you've got another air hole in the barrel, and you're going to have to deal with the fact that this piece of equipment is not going to do what it was supposed to do. And that will lead to frustration later on. All right, kids, that's it for the mystery of the Daisy Model 96 and why it's a little bit different from other bottle cap shot tubes. This is Shane Bruce with Restomod Daisy, signing off.